Are you ready for part two of my conversation with Miki Berenyi? Embarking on an insightful journey with this renowned musician, the engaging discussion brings to light reflections on growth from teenage freedom to the realities of adulthood. Listen in on intimate stories of maintaining autonomy, creative passion, and navigating personal relationship amongst band responsibilities. Learn how money and admiration were not always the driving motivations, but rather the personal connections and dependencies within the band Lush. Hear Mickey's keen insights on personal experiences, individual evolution, and wonderful forms of play. It's all part of this conversation and a whole lot more. Don't forget, at the heart of our talk is LOVE, just like her book. Enjoy. Post-teenage years, let's say 21 through 40, how are you trying to achieve more independence, more autonomy in your life at that time? What were you doing to seek that out?
I mean, I probably wasn't really. I think because I left, I kind of moved out of home when I was about, I don't know, was I about 15? I can't remember. I had to look it up. I did put it in the book, but I'm always a bit vague on the details. I moved around so much that I think I was already, you know, able to function like I could, I knew how to fucking live without parents, but I don't think I liked living without people. I wasn't very good at motivating myself at doing things, and I'm still not. I think I need a person, right? It's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I almost wish it was, because that would mean that I could actually motivate myself to do it. But it's actually usually a person. Even the book, this guy, Peter Selby, approached me. Yes, of course I got fucking paid for it. But, it was him. It was not letting him down that was like a big part of it. And, and it's interesting. I tend not to, if I'm doing something that hasn't happened yet. I did this with Piroshka. I didn't talk about that band to anyone until we were kind of up and running. And I did the same with the book. A handful of people knew before I was actually. Now, it's interesting. I know people who do the opposite, right? They fucking talk about it before it's even come to fruition. And I always thought that was a bit shit. Like, oh my God, you're already calling yourself an author and you haven't written a fucking sentence yet. But I can also see how that's quite a motivating thing for some people, because once they let the cat out the bag, then they really feel they have to do it for their own ego, right? I'm not like that. I need it completely private, because I might not do it actually. I need to know that I really, really want to do it. And usually that means webbing in other people. It's why I think I like bands rather than ever wanting to be a solo artist. Because, once you're in that group and people are relying on each other and you have to do your bit, that's much more motivating for me.
Perfect transition into my next question. And this is a question in regards to your experience with Lush. And this is the second reading excerpt from The Creative Act, A Way of Being. So again, I'm going to read you a passage, and I want you to think about how this connects to your experience during the Lush years. Okay. Nothing is static. The world is always changing. You can engage in some awareness, practice 5 days in a row in the same location, and have a unique experience each time. Different sounds and different smells may be present. No two gusts of wind feel quite the same. The tone and quality of sunlight changes from minute to minute and day to day. Within the richness of nature, the variations are easily noticeable. Some are about their big shouts, some are the whispers. Even if an element seems static, whether a work of art in a museum or an everyday object in the kitchen, when we look at it deeply, we can see newness. Please respond to that in terms of your experience with Lush in any way.
Oh, blimey. I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just trying to apply it to Lush. I mean, I, I guess I agree that, I do think that actually playing and writing and creating music and even once you've created it and you're performing it is, you know, always fresh and different. You know, I I'm sort of, you know, you know, it's I think the experience of being in Lush was so intense, right? I mean, it was one of the reliefs I had when I actually, stopped doing music and got a normal 9 to 5 job where I thought, oh my God, you can literally just switch off. That's it. So you leave work and you go home and you don't have to fucking think about it at all. And I think with Lush, it was everything. It was my friendship group. At one point, it was my relationship. Even after I wasn't going out with Chris, when I was going out with John Best, he was a PR. Lots of people I went out with were in bands. It was my work. It was my money. It was my fucking everything. Do you know what I mean? And it was a bit much. It does mean that, although I always had friends outside of the music industry, I stayed in touch with my schoolmates and I always, really value friendships. So I wasn't one of those people who kind of joined a band and then, thought I was the big I am and fucked off to hobnob with, trendy musicians or whatever. Not my style at all. But still, it was a huge part of my life. And I think the other thing is, you can.
And just like her book, this conversation, Miki goes into the heart of the truth with regards to the challenges and positives of being in a famous rock band.
You can have a job, and you can have colleagues and you can get along with them, but they're not your best fucking friends. And you don't have to pretend that they are, right? And with a band, it's not just like a bunch of people who get together and make music and then go home to their respective lives. There's a sort of front that you were expected to kind of, present to the world. Everybody wants you. I mean, it's so much of it is what is other people's expectations kind of, projected onto you. And some of that is fun and it gets you attention and it can be quite exciting. And it's not a bad idea to have a kind of, outside influence that is, willing you to, I don't know, have that kind of, glue around you. But at the same time, it puts immense pressure on those relationships because everybody panics if, things don't go their way. As much as people want you to be this all band we love the idea that you're all best mates and, we like asking questions about how great you all think everybody else is. But at the same time, you're surrounded by people who are trying to find a fucking way in. There's a lot of people who like to create shit within bands, right? And, because that's their way of, getting their shoulder in and, they pit people against each other and they, and that's not just the hangers on. It's, record companies and managers and not necessarily my experience, but I've seen it happen. You know what I mean? I've seen that kind of lead singer get the fucking smoke blown up their arse and you're the important one and all that bullshit. You know what I mean? And generally a band's strength, I think, is in the groupness of it, right? I mean, I think that in Lush, that idea of who's the most important was a ridiculous question. Because, okay, yes, I'm the singer and I've got the red hair and blah, 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 right? The singer is always the one who gets all that attention. Emma was the fucking chief songwriter, right? And I, myself have said that, I felt her songs were, what I aspired to. She was an immense influence on me, not least because of her ambition. And, she wasn't lazy as a songwriter. She constantly was setting the bar higher for herself. I think Chris was like, I think I said it in the book, he really was the heart and soul of Lush. He was the best of us in terms of a personality. Now, I don't want to sit here and say he was perfect just because he's no longer around. but, you know, he had like a real optimism, and he had, you know, and people fucking loved him, right? Everybody thought Chris was great. There's not a single, and I'm genuinely mean that, right? I know that's a rare thing. And, you know, even Steve, although he was kind of like, you know, he wasn't around for that long or whatever, but he was fucking hilarious, you know, and very smart. I would argue he wasn't the world's best bass player, but it didn't fucking matter. You know, he was integral to the group, and,
Right.
you know, such good company as well, or also really handy for pub quizzes. But anyway, my point is, and Phil as well, you know, when Phil came in, he was so suave, and he was kind of quite worldly, and he was sort of, I don't know, he brought something to the band, you know, and he had a kind of, he was quite a gossip actually. He knew a lot of sort of minutiae about bands, and kind of, you know, he'd worked at the NME, so he was full of these like anecdotes and stories and stuff. So, you know, and all of this stuff, right? However, you can go like, I mean, you know, it sounds like I'm damning Phil with faint praise, or Steve for that matter, but I'm not, because the point is it's not necessarily about being the best fucking singer in the world. I'm certainly not that, right? It's about the group dynamic and what you're bringing to it. And all of those things are incredibly important. And it's really only when someone starts acting like a fucking dick and ignoring the other people in the band and their needs and their kind of, you know, I don't know, you know, it's a community, you know. Does that sound not, you know, stupid?
No, no.
But I just think I'm probably arguing from the perspective of people devaluing certain people, and also looking at the pressures that bands are under. But I do think, you know, with regard to what you were saying about change and newness, I do think that, you know, there's people change. You know, the Emma I knew when I was 14 is different to the Emma who I no longer talk to, right? There are some key things that are the fucking same and have never changed. But, you know, your life circumstances, what's important to you, different aspects of your personality that get raised or lowered. So it's not a, you know, people go, oh, it's such a shame that you don't talk anymore, like blah blah blah. And, you know, I've had people online, you know, twats I'd call them, but, you know, who, you know, when I wrote about, you know, Lush in the book, and when I said, you know, look, I don't talk to some of these people anymore, but there's a bit of, you know, I've got a shared history with them, right? I miss the person that they were. I miss having them to talk about the experiences we have, because those things, talking about your experiences with the people who were there at the time, is, it brings them to life again, you know, and that's quite a unique thing. And I had people going, oh, well, you know, if that's how dare she say that when she's been such a shit to Emma or Phil or whatever they fucking say I've done, right? And my thing is that, do you not understand that you can still love someone for who they were?
Sure.
And that, you know, you don't kind of pull up the drawbridge and, you know, yank in the Hoover cord, you know what I mean? And pretend none of it ever existed. It's there in my past. And there were times when, you know, these people were incredibly important to me. And I think that it affected how the music was made. I think I make music, you know, that's why I'm not going to make the same sort of music as I made then, because it was affected by, you know, the people I was with and what I wanted. You know, I did style some of my songs to suit Chris and, you know, Steve and Phil and Emma, and how we performed those songs together. So, you know, and I think that the songs that we wrote then, I'm not one to really sit around and listen to my own music, if I'm honest, but there are times when I, you know, get played a blast a bit and it feels like another band played it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I do. And you stated that beautifully and articulately. Thank you. And that was going to be my next question. What songs really conveyed a sense of pain and or happiness during that part of your life with Lush? And I know you don't just sit there every day and listen to Lush songs, but if you can remember, man, that song truly captured the essence of what I was feeling, the immense pain, the immense, you know, elation, Are there songs that take you directly to that moment?
I think, I mean, funnily enough, I think before I wrote the book, I think Light from a Dead Star would always kind of, make me think, oh, yeah, that I kind of, it's sort of about my mum and my dad and me and our, you know, kind of, it's quite a sad song, it's a bit kind of, it is about, in each verse, it's a kind of loss of the person, or admitting that you just can't have them. You know what I mean? You have to walk away for your various reasons, And I think it always used to move me a bit when I'd hear it. That sounds incredibly self-indulgent, but I just felt that. But I think once I wrote the book, the book was a bit like therapy. I'm not going to lie, right? It was a lot to get through. And I think I put a lot of what I thought in its kind of box, But in terms of, Lush's music or the songs that I've written, I think, I think Kiss Chase and For Love. These things, they're quite sort of searching in a way. I do think that I'm not, I can't write something that's too piercingly sad because it just feels a bit like wallowing, if I'm honest. There usually has to be a little bit of humor in there, for Christ's sake, and also because I often can see the absurdity in some of these things.
Your story, and I say this with all due respect, and I told my girlfriend this. I said, Miki's story reminds me of Sinead O'Connor a bit in terms of the delivery, the mental attitude that I heard through the words being poured out onto these pages. You have this ability to go deep inside the core of this human experience that can be very tragic and heartfelt, but also you have the ability to merge it and marry it with humor. That's not easy to do. And Sinead O'Connor did that often throughout her stories, her remembrances. Where does that come from? To merge those two qualities together, because most people just know how to do one. How do you find the humor with the pain?
I mean, I think, to be honest, it's my dad used to talk like that, right? And I don't know if it's, I mean, every culture has its, you know, way of doing humor. But I think in Hungary, there's quite a kind of, there's quite a gallows, I don't know, what would you call it? It's quite brutal, their humor. Like, it's expressed in everything. Like, they fucking swear like troopers. This is why I'm such a swearhead, right? It's like, you can swear in Hungarian and not repeat yourself for fucking ages, right? And it's a very expressive language, actually. It has a lot of color in it. And, whereas Japanese, which I don't speak fluently, and as beautiful as it is, it's so tied up in levels of politeness and stuff and the kind of sexual politics, it's totally fucking in the language. You cannot escape from it. It's just a real headache. Whereas I think in Hungarian, it's incredibly expressive. It's quite rude. It's, there's a lot of toilet humor in it, and quite sort of saying the unsayable, actually. Like, so I think that culturally, even, that's probably part of it. Like, it's just instant. I don't even think it's something you think about, and I guess some people have that in them because of the people they grew up with. Possibly there is that kind of, when you haven't had that much time to have your hurts kind of, stroked and softened. And there's a bit of like, okay, you just need to, right, I haven't got time for this. So you just need to fucking get on. Okay. Like, sometimes if you deliver that with humor, it's more palatable. Right.
Yep.
So I think my memories of, I do think, rather than, my dad would never sit there and go like, oh my God, you're so, actually, sorry, I'm going to meander for a minute, because I'm suddenly remembering how I've seen some people tell me their pain was dealt with, that often there was a kind of, mother who would be exhausted. Oh, you're hurting me so much with this behavior. Or what about me? And I know you're sad about this, but this is so, that kind of, which I think is appalling, right? Because I'm not used to that. I do understand it. It is excusable. But I grew up with a kind of like, listen, stop being a fucking arsehole, right? And then followed by a joke, right? A comparison scenario that would actually make you laugh and go, okay, I am being a dick. So, and you've entertained me. So I don't know. I just think bad news is not that I would deliver bad news with a joke, but like, do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like, I think especially when you're talking about yourself, I mean, this may be a kind of issue with, I think it's well covered that people use humor as a sort of deflective tactic. People are like, please stop telling jokes, just talk about how you feel. It's really hard. You want to make them entertaining, and it's not just because you are deflecting, but because it actually makes them easier to cope with. Right? It's quite a good coping mechanism, humor. We do it all the time. When you tell someone about some funny thing that happened to you, it's the classic line, isn't it? Well, I can laugh about it now. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also as we get older, we become less sensitive to things, and we see the lighter things inside the darkness, because I think
Wow, I don't know about that. Fuck me, I've seen some people get older and they are fucking way worse than they were when they were in their 20s. Jesus.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, fair enough. But I think, maybe speaking for myself, I have become less fragile and sensitive and less of a victim. And that's something I gathered from your story, your narratives, particularly when you read the book out loud. I never got a sense, Miki, that you were a victim to all of these struggles and hardships and strife. Now, you may have felt that way, but conveying it to the reader, I never got that.
I mean, I think that, I don't want to, I sort of have to tread carefully, because I know that people have gone through terrible things and they are rightly, entitled to feel that they've been a victim of something terrible, and that they should be able to voice that and feel sorry for themselves. And I absolutely get that. My problem is, personally, for me, is that it is a dead end, right? You need to get that out of your system, and then you need to fucking move on. And I do feel that, with, the effects of sexual abuse, I don't know that much about it. I haven't studied it endlessly, but I kind of recognize that, that divorcing of sex from love, that kind of, too soon, too much information way too soon, right, is damaging, and it kind of makes you do, it patterns you into bad kind of habits, right? But the point is, right, sometime in my kind of early 20s, I actually did think, I'm fucked, I've just been broken, right? This is it. I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. My fucking parents didn't pay enough attention. They left me with this fucking woman, right, who has just destroyed me, and she's destroyed my life. And I sat there feeling awful about it, and actually thinking, even if I try and mend this damage, it's going to take me years to catch up with everybody who's normal, right? And how am I ever going to have a normal relationship? How am I ever going to have children? It's been ruined for me, right? I thought like that for a few months, right? And I realized this is actually really depressing, right? It's actually doing my head in. There's something about that hopelessness. So it's not that, I know people are like, oh yeah, I don't think of myself as a victim. I don't like to. It's not because I'm so fucking courageous or amazing or have risen above it. It's fucking boring, right? It's really fucking boring, and it makes you boring to other people. And I thought, I just can't do this. Like, this is actually making it way worse, right? So I think it's made me feel that kind of victimhood, which I'm afraid is bloody everywhere these days. I get that it's, as I said before, I get that we don't want to victim blame. We want to not, sort of stigmatize people for being victims. But I think you have to kind of worry about your own mental health and the rest of your life, dwelling on that stuff and feeling like it's weighing you down, that it's a rock that you'll never climb out from under, that it's damaged you. Equally, that's not good. I equally don't think it's good to think of it like it's a superpower, like, well, it's not a bad thing that happened to me, because it's taught me to do this and it's made me stronger. No, it hasn't done either of those things. It's done neither of those two extremes, right? Nobody wants to fucking go to war just so that everyone can experience something terrible and therefore become more kind of resilient human beings.
Correct.
But I do think if terrible things happen to you, you have to process them. And part of that is feeling like a victim and despairing and feeling incredibly sorry for yourself. But it has to fucking end at some point,
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a really brutal question here. As a parent that you are and have raised children, is that something you encourage your kids to feel the pain, feel the anguish, sit, stew, and marinate in it, move on? What was your approach when your children felt a bit of victimization?
Oh, God. I mean, I was always very on side, I felt, I mean, probably more so when it came to like outside things. I probably, not very good at managing my own impact on them. I think that's always the tricky thing. People, before you have children, you think you're going to be this amazing parent, and really it doesn't matter what the fuck you do. You know what I mean? if you're late to school or whatever, you're just going to be screaming at them. You know, like I would love to be the parent that would go, who cares? You know, what? No, what do you mean you can't find your bloody shoes? What's going on? Right. Okay. So I think, yeah, I always felt that, you know, I don't know. I felt I did my best. I mean, I think that, of course, you know, when your children are sad or they're unhappy or someone's being horrible to them, you know, you want to find out what the problem is and you want to console them and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, there's a point when I think, I mean, I can't really think of any examples, but I always did feel like, okay, right, back in the saddle. Come on then. You know, I mean, I think, you know, or you do something about it, you know. I mean, I don't really like talking about my children too much because I don't want, you know,
Yeah.
you know, don't think it's fair on them for other people to know about the details of their own experiences. But I think that, you know, a lot of being a parent is about fixing things. I think the bit I struggled with is things that I couldn't fix, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
you know, and actually allowing them the space to fix it for themselves is quite difficult, you know, because maybe because I felt I didn't get enough of that, you know, and then you're compensating for something you felt that you didn't have. And actually what you realize is, you know, you can do a bit of that, but anything, you know, it's all parenting is all about balance. You know, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but you can just go too far with something and that's
So
when it becomes problematic. But no one knows where that line is. That's the problem.
no, they don't. But I want to know from you, how did becoming a parent change you? How did it have a dramatic effect on you, if you don't mind sharing? And how are you similar or different from your own parents?
I mean, I think it changed me in that, like, I'm someone who always felt like I'm sort, you know, it's that difficult question. Are you an optimist? Are you a pessimist? Whatever. Right. And I think my way is always to think, well, how bad can it be? What's the worst that can happen? And then I kind of think, okay, well, if I can cope with that, then I'll do it. Right. Which I would argue is quite optimistic, actually. Right. Because, you know, I just need to know the lay of the land. Right. But I think with, and so therefore I've always felt like, even down to, this is ridiculous, I know, and I'm not suggesting that I did do this seriously, but there's a bit of me that would go, oh well, if it's really bad I can always kill myself. Right. Right, I wouldn't actually do it, but just mentally it's like, kind of like, there's always another option, right? If life gets too terrible you could just end it, right? um, and I think that what I realized when I had my daughter, my first child, was there was a lot of those options, even if they're just mental exercises, were gone, right? No, you can't fucking kill yourself because that will fucking destroy someone else's life, right? You're in a relationship. If it fucks up or if you fuck it up, you can't just move on and start again. I mean, you can, but it's going to have a huge impact, right? And whether you like it or not, this person that you have had that child with, you are going to have to know them for the rest of your fucking life, okay? So you better fucking make the right decision and make sure that even if you split up, however that is, that you make it as friendly and decent as possible for the sake of your children, right? So all of those things, and that did panic me, okay? I did think, shit, that kind of permanence for someone who has never really had any permanence in their life, as much as I wanted the permanence and always felt that I missed it, you know, it was a huge responsibility and I kicked against it for a while. It was hard, you know, it freaked me out a bit. And, you know, I think I was, it's not that I was unhappy. I think I was just panicked by it. You know, I think what doesn't help is, just as a side note, having grown up with quite a feminist sort of political culture around me, I did realize that the big gap in feminism is fucking motherhood, right? Like, they do not deal with that at fucking at all, right? And that needs to start now, and I don't just mean like, fucking pampering and baby yoga, like proper attitude stuff.
Did you did you feel at times while parenting you were catching yourself, oh, this is too much of my mom, or this is too much of my dad? And when you caught yourself in that moment, could you break free?
I mean, I didn't really catch myself. What I'd get is I'd get Moose going, "Oh my God, you're just like your mother."
Yeah.
Ah, and I think, it's one of the difficulties of not living with my mother since I was like 11. There are times when I spend time with her when I think, "Oh my God, I actually do that." I think it's one of the important things of keeping in touch with your parents, because they're a warning. Right? Like, you won't see it in yourself, but when you see it in a parent, you'll go, "Oh shit, yeah, I recognize that now." Bless her. I love my mum. She has many, many good qualities as well. And I think you were asking, like, how was I similar to them? How was I different? And I think, I mean, my mum is on a glib level, she's a great cook, and she's a people pleaser. She's a great host, and she enjoys people's company. She enjoys doing things for people. She's very motivated by that. And I think I've, you know, share a lot of that with her. I'm not as good a cook as her, but I do love cooking. There's a sort of, because my dad couldn't fucking look after anything, right? So I definitely get that from my mum. There's a care, there's a sort of nurturing side to her, in terms of, yeah, she does care about people. I don't think, being her daughter was difficult. And I don't think it was really down to her. I just think it's about, you know, the men she chose to be with and the way that she was raised. That meant that the men took center stage, and they, if the men, I mean, she did leave them. She would put her foot down eventually, but I think and so that, in that respect, I'm completely different to, she went to go and live in America with my stepdad. She lived a very materialistic lifestyle, and, still kind of does, in that she has a nice big house in Hollywood and drives a Mercedes and blah, 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 and she's well off. Now, none of that has ever appealed to me, right? I, you know, I have a decent house. I'm not going to lie, you know what I mean? I work, I earn money, this, that, and the other. But that kind of aspiration to, I just don't get it. Like, I'm quite happy to go on holiday in a tent in, Cornwall or wherever the fuck, right? All to me, my mum was begging me to come and live in America with her. And I just found everything about it. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's fun. It's nice to visit LA. It's a great place. But, you know, you can't walk anywhere. Fucking 10 lanes of freeway traffic. I just don't even understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, so in that respect, we're quite different. I mean, I always feel a bit bad saying it, because I think that sometimes you have to experience privilege to be able to reject it. And I'm well aware that I'm middle class, and, there's plenty of like advantages that I've had in life. So, it's easy for me,
Yeah.
to kind of turn my back on that, because I was offered it and most people aren't. So I get it when people have a drive to get those things. But I saw it, I didn't like it, I don't want it.
We're going to wrap this up. This is the chapter of our conversation called Scratching at the Lid of Afternoon Life. Okay, let's go almost full circle here. Upon reflection, Miki, How do you feel and look at love now at this point of your life?
God, I mean, I think that I think everybody needs it, even if they can't define it. And I think that it's, people have different capacities for love. And I don't know. I think it's so complicated to me, love. Like, it's probably a bit like faith. I'm not religious, but it's like when someone who believes in God tries to describe faith to you, and it just sounds fucking stupid, right? Because when you try, like they feel it, but trying to describe it reduces it and makes you just question everything they say. And I think love is probably quite like that. There's lots of sort of versions of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're wrong versions. I think having a crush is fucking great. It's exciting, right? I think, you know, I don't know, there's all the different kinds of love that you can get, whether it's love for your children or passionate love or romantic love or all of these things. I would fucking go for all of them, right? And experience them at some point, because I actually think everybody's idea of what it really is quite different. And until you've tried the different versions, you're not really going to know what's right for you.
Yes. Beautifully stated. Okay. So you told me how you spend your early days being creative. How do you spend your time being creative now and full of wonder at this point of your life?
I mean, I don't know if I'm ever full of wonder. Not a particularly wonderful person, but I think, oh God, I mean, honestly, I'm quite basic. Like, I think most of my creativity, what I've realized is so much of my creativity is about work. Like, I actually, I do really like working. It's, you know, I think there's a kind of, like creativity just for the sake of creativity makes me feel like it's a bit, I just feel too restless. I mean, that might be because I'm just not used to doing things totally for myself. So I think that, one of my big creative things, if you can call it creative, is cooking. But cooking has a purpose. You don't just do it because you feel like it. There has to be a fucking load of people who want to eat at the end of it. And I think, I'm writing music with, the trio at the moment. And, I might do another book. I'll see. But I won't do any of those things unless I need to. So,
But
I think,
how do you know you need to?
well, because I'll invite a load of people around for dinner. So I know I need to cook. I will, I've started this band with Ollie and Moose, and we've now booked all this stuff to do. So I know I need to. We have to go to America, and we have to play for an hour and 20 minutes. So I've got to write some more fucking songs. Otherwise, we're not going to do that. I've got an album that we want to get out next year. So I need to write some songs for that. So yeah, all of those things are the things that motivate me. I'm quite good at I know a lot of people. I'm in touch with a lot of people. I never fucking let go of anyone if I can help it. So there's always someone to spark off and start something with. Like, there's always someone who is interested in doing something, and I'm, whether that's being a dinner party guest or it's or it's starting a band, like,
Well, since you're on that discussion of music, I want to know, how does music affect you now? Is it still the pitch? Is it the rhythm? Is it the tempo, melody, harmony? What is it for you now that really speaks to you about music?
oh, all of those things. I don't think I never really separate them. I think, do you know what? I've always liked such a broad range of music. I mean, I say that. What I mean is, you know, I grew up at a time when I was like a teenager, when me and Emma were going to gigs, it was really tribal, right? So people were like, okay, this lot are into, goth, or this lot are into, I don't know, fucking rockabilly music, or you know what I mean? Everyone had these clear demarcations. And I've seen it with people who are into dance music. Oh no, I only like dance music, right? Or I only like fucking, you know, R&B or whatever the fuck it is, right? And to me, that's completely nonsensical. I think that, you know, it's the, I would, you know, because you get different things from different things, you know, great, you know, a bit of drum and bass and it's got like rhythm and it's sort of, you know, the focus is all on the rhythm and it's so fucking complicated sometimes that you need that space. But I want to listen to that all the fucking time, you know. Then you put on like the fucking Cocteau Twins and hear Liz's voice and it's like, oh my God, mind blown. You know what I mean? Why would you deny yourself any one of those different things? And I think that, you know, writing with the trio, actually what's quite funny is when we started Lush, I remember sort of thinking, you know, I always kind of paid quite a lot of deference to Emma as a songwriter. So when she would write things like Thought Forms or Ethereal, which were beautiful songs, I would sort of think, okay, these are lovely songs, but I can feel that the live set needs a little bit more of a lift, like a bit of welly. And also that maybe Chris, you know, bless him, who is into oi punk, may not want to play like waltz time songs like the whole time. So I'm going to write him a little bit of a banger, right? And give him a bit of space. And I find myself doing the same thing now, you know, that I think Moose writes songs in a very particular way. And I think, okay, I'm going to sort of fill in some of the gaps here and write a song that's, you know, actually starts from the drums and the bass, that is more rhythm driven rather than melody driven. And, you know, and I think you can start songs like there's songs where it completely starts with the melody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally taking a melody and trying to find chords that will fit around it, not even like singing over a guitar. It's just a melody.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think, you know, and it's a very collaborative band. So there's songs that Ollie's written where it's really good fun to just actually add harmonies, you know, to Moose's songs as well. You know, he'll kind of, he's more kind of complete with what he's written, but I can add, you know, I did in Piroshka put loads of harmonies on his songs, and it's really good fun to not have the responsibility of a whole fucking song. Do you know what I mean? You think I can just come in and like sprinkle a little bit of something on there, and then it's, you know. So all of those things, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense to me. And you being a lover of music, why would any of those kind of outmuscle one another? Speaking of fun, let's have a little bit of fun with the speed round here. So I'm just going to throw out a question or a comment, prompt, if you will, and just respond naturally. What type of tree are you?
I mean, you're talking to someone who's lived in London all their life. We're quite limited with what's available. I'd say probably an apple tree. You know, there's a practicality. Like, I'm not being funny. I live on this street, right? There's quite a lot of these sort of places in London that were built as kind of workers' cottages.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure this was, but it was definitely like there was a kind of, you know, what you get in a lot of these sort of, you know, for working or, you know, middle but working sort of people that were built at the turn of the century. they'll often have an apple tree in the garden, because the thinking was that it's food, right? So you won't fucking starve to death, right?
Yeah.
So there's a kind of practicality. So I'm quite practical, and I know I've written a book where everybody keeps telling me like, oh my God, your life was so weird and mad. But I do actually think of myself as very, very normal. I may be deluding myself, but I think there's a normality to apple trees that I quite like. So, and a
Apple tree it
practicality. So
is.
that's what I'm going with.
What animal most resembles you as a mother?
Oh my God. God, what animal resembles me as a mother? So if I say like a particular bird or something, there's a certain. I was quite busy as a mother. There is a bit of like, right, you stay here. I'm going to go and get some food. I'm going to go and get the stuff, and I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to, I'll build the nest, and I'll do all that practical shit. I will sort of sit on you at some point and keep you warm, but I've got quite a lot on, right? But I don't want to pick some bird that, pushes their young out of the nest too early or something like that, because that's not me. But you know what I mean? So yeah,
Yes.
a bird.
Okay.
A generic bird.
Apple tree, generic bird. Here we go. What is one of your greatest accomplishments?
Coming up with the title for the book. Fuck me. Let's just have that.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how long that took, and how many emails and how many lists. So the fact that I actually came up with the title is fucking amazing.
Love it. Vaughn Oliver.
Oh, bless him, Vaughan Oliver. To be honest, I didn't know Vaughan that well. He was, but he was someone who actually, that was probably an advantage. If I think about it, he was quite mental, amazingly talented. I was, it was, I tell you what, Vaughan and I'd still work with Chris, who was, his partner in V23. I do feel quite blessed to have worked from very early on with like these people who listen to the music, they actually get inspired by the music, so that they're doing something, they're creating something for your record that is like full of care and attention, but not like, oh yeah, I've got 55 ideas on the shelf and I'm just going to pick one for you. It's like a genuinely growing, organic, inspirational kind of thing. And yeah, he was great. And he had a fucking filthy sense of humor, which always helps. So he was a fully rounded person. He wasn't some poncy art school student. He was totally earthy and quite wickedly funny, actually. Yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of that kind of stuff, right now, what is your favorite swear word at this time?
Oh my God, I swear all the time.
I know.
I suppose it depends, doesn't it? I mean, Americans always have quite sort of, the Americans are always a bit sensitive, aren't they, about, about swear words. So, I used to use the C word quite a lot, and people get genuinely offended. And I think, wow, really? Because it's such a great word. But okay, fair enough. I think, I don't know. Like you consider shit a swear word, which I just think is like, come on, like, arse ache. I'm using that a lot. I think ball ache was for a while up there. Arse ache has replaced it a bit. I mean, there are times I always think of my dad, Hungarian. Okay, there's a swear word that I love, which is that you kind of use in a kind of, oh, bullshit kind of way, right? And it's lawfas, right? Which literally means horse penis.
Okay.
A great fucking expression. I love it.
What excites you about the Miki Berenyi trio?
Well, it certainly isn't the name, which I was, which the boys picked, by the way, in that
Okay.
they were like, I kind of learned with Piroshka that, or we realized with Piroshka that you can't, like these days, you have to signal this stuff loud and clear. The number of people I get who are like, oh, I didn't even know you had another band. They didn't even know I was in Piroshka, because unless you put it on the fucking tin, right, nobody knows. So now it's the Miki Berenyi Trio, even though, right, it's the most collaborative band that I've probably ever been in. I mean, Piroshka was pretty collaborative, but it's way more collaborative than Lush, and it's got my fucking name on it. So, but I don't know. I think, what was the question? I'm suddenly
What
thinking,
excites what excites you about?
What excites me? Well, loads of things, because I think, we're going to play in America at the end of May. I see what, we've actually been playing loads of gigs because we started doing this band around my book events, actually, because if I was doing a talk, they go, oh, can you play some music? And I can't bear me and an acoustic guitar. It just fills me full of horror. So I was like, well, if I do it, I need, a band. So we started this little threesome with a kind of drum machine type thing or backing track. And we were just, kind of doing a few Lush songs, but then actually we started to quite enjoy it. And so we started writing songs, and so it's grown, right? It's grown into a band, and then we'll write an album. But because I'm so crap at planning anything, like, the sensible thing would have been to like go away and write an album and do this all in private, like I normally would, and then kind of release yourself to the world. But actually, because it was kind of quite organic, and so we've just been writing songs and putting them in the set. And actually, I realized that, God, it's actually really nice to play gigs when there's no expectation, right? So I feel like I'm back at the beginning of Lush, where we'd be writing songs and, oh, I've written a new song. Okay, let's put it in the set. You know what I mean? No album, no schedule, no fucking NME interviews, no press plan and video release and whatever the fuck it is. We're just going to play some gigs. And so I'm quite enjoying that. I know it sounds a bit Spinal Tap, I envy us, etc. Right? But I genuinely am enjoying it.
I love that. And that goes back to the newness, what we were talking about earlier. Okay. Who is Miki Berenyi now? Who are you?
Do you know what? I actually looked up a quote. It's a John Updike quote, which is very famous, but I always loved. And he said something like, we think we are what we think and what we see or what we feel or something like that. But in reality, we are just upright bags of tripe. And I fully concur with that. I don't know who Miki Berenyi is. I've been Miki from Lush. I've been Miki who's a mum. I've been Miki who is a sub-editor. You end up wearing a million different hats in your life. And I think that it's okay. So what is interesting is that we live in a time where identity seems to be like a real fucking issue. Everybody is incredibly sort of almost a bit petulant about having, recognize my identity, right? And I get that no one wants to be overlooked, and certainly no one wants to be, pushed out of a conversation. But I do question, I don't actually know the answer to that. Are you like loads of different people? It depends who you're with, doesn't it? I mean, I've had like a bottle of cider now, and it's only 6:05. So I'm a little bit drunk, which actually makes me a slightly different person to the person who started this interview already.
I do understand.
And when Luce comes home, I'll be a slightly different person. And when the guy who delivers my fish turns up, I'll be a slightly different person to him. And so I have no fucking idea who Miki Berenyi is most of the time. It very much depends on the company she keeps.
And you're totally okay with that?
Yeah, it's quite, I mean, I don't know. Do people feel isn't that great that you can be
Fluid?
so many different things? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite fluid, actually, isn't it? That's quite a modern term. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'm fluid. Shit. I need to find some box I can put myself into with that description.
I'm going to punctuate our conversation with one more reading. You don't have to respond. I want the listeners to absorb this, sponge it up. Again, this comes from The Creative Act, A Way of Being, written by Rick Rubin. Miki Berenyi, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. This is a chapter called Play. Making art is a serious matter. Harnessing creative energy from source. Shepherding ideas into physical plane. Participating in the cosmic cycle of creation. The opposite is also true. Making art is pure play. Within every artist, there's a child emptying a box of crayons onto the floor, searching for just the right color to draw the sky. It might be violet, olive, or burnt orange. As artists, we strive to preserve this playfulness throughout the gravity of the enterprise. We embrace both the seriousness of the commitment and the playfulness of being completely free in the making. Take art seriously without going about it in a serious way. Thank you so much. My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page. This has been a fabulous, intimate, warm, funny, poignant interview with Miki Berenyi. Thank you for listening to Surprise Cast. Take care, everyone. Ciao.